Hey everybody, it is Dak here from the Ed Boys, and today's video is going to be a guide add-on for my 1 to 99 prayer guide. We're going to be discussing the recently added demonic ashes. Previously, monsters that dropped ashes would just drop regular ashes, which are worthless for the most part, but now those monsters drop different kinds of demonic ashes that can be used for prayer XP. Just like how non-demon creatures could drop bones, right, and you get XP from that, now demons have their version of that. There's 5 different ashes: fiendish, vile, malicious, abyssal, and infernal ashes. Just like with bones, you can just click on the ashes for some prayer XP, though you spread them in the wind rather than bury them in the ground. You'd really rather not do that if you can avoid it at any time, though. Don't spread the ashes. Just like for the most part, you don't really want to bury bones. There are better options. You can't use ashes on certain altars for bonus XP like you could with bones, but with the Arceuus Spellbook rework, we are given a magic spell that does work similarly. Demonic Offering requires 84 magic, and each spell uses 1 soul and 1 wrath rune. Casting the spell will use 3 ashes at a time and give 3 times XP per ash. So in other words, one spell is going to use 3 ashes and give you 9 ashes worth of XP. And a little bit of magic XP on top of that too. There's a 5-second cooldown between casts, but the rates are very solid, and it kind of makes it less click intensive with a little bit of a cooldown in there. Max pace is like 600 spells an hour. I really found 550 spells an hour was more consistent on my end for actually estimating long-term rates. With 550 casts an hour, you're looking at these XP rates for each different type of ash. No matter which ash you're using, you'd be getting about 96k magic XP an hour while doing it, which is kind of nice. Prayer has always been a quick skill, so it's expected to see high XP rates with a new method. I really wouldn't bother much with the lower level ashes unless maybe you're an Iron Man, then you don't really have room to be picky. No matter which ash you use, it is the same cost in runes, so chipping for those higher level ashes will also lead to needing less runes for your training. But we can go deeper into what ashes are going to be worth how much right now, actually. Let's look into the price tags for using each spell. First of all, you're using a soul rune and a wrath rune no matter what per cast. Right now, that would be 147 coins for the soul, 386 for the wrath, so 533 coins per spell, plus the cost of the ashes times 3 since you're using 3 ashes per cast. At 550 casts an hour, here's a look at the GP per hour that you can expect to be spending, and since we've already gone over XP an hour, we can see exactly how much GP you spend for each XP. When you're deciding on a prayer method, or really any training method, especially in a buyable skill, the GP per XP number is, in my opinion, like the main number you're looking for. That combined with how long it's going to take does also matter, of course. It's one thing to save a lot of money, but if you're saving less money than you could potentially go make elsewhere, you're better off splurging on some faster methods. This table that I'm looking at here is going to be getting a little long, so we're just going to be scrolling through it a little bit. But the whole point of what we're about to go through here is just to see which methods would be worth doing when comparing how much time they take and how much they cost. In terms of like just how to do the method, we've really already gone over that. We're just going to spew some numbers here. A lot of players really only narrow down to the fastest or the cheapest option when deciding what to do, when there can be a nice sweet spot in the middle. Here's a look at getting 70 to 99 prayer, how much XP that requires. Not quite 199. I assume that if you're getting 84 magic first, then you're not going to be right at 1 prayer when you start this method. And even if you are, the majority of the XP is still in that 70 to 99 fraction, so this is still a good estimate for looking at the long-term prayer training. Since we know how much XP we need, and we know how much GP per XP, then we know how much it costs to get 70 to 99 in each method, and since we know the XP needed, we can use the XP per hour to see how long it's going to take for each method. As you can see, currently the cheapest way to get 99 prayer with demonic offering is malicious ashes, which is currently at 67 mil, just about. That's when making this video. Of course, prices can change. It's not the fastest method, but it's also not the slowest method, so generally that's a good sign. Any of the methods on this list that are more hours than malicious ashes are clearly not worth it, since they're also going to cost more money. This is the cheapest method. Malicious ashes are looking good in general, but let's see if they're the best option. This next column I've marked is hours saved. It just compares the hours required to the cheapest method here, so I'm comparing how many hours each method requires to malicious ashes. Anything with a positive amount of hours saved means that you could get the cape faster, save that many hours, and then use those extra hours trying to make up the money that you spent. And for this final column, I've put a number for how much money you would have to make per hour in those extra hours to break even. So if you did infernal ashes instead of malicious ashes, you're going to save 15.5 hours, a little bit more than that. And you have to make about 1.69 mil profit per hour in those 15.5 hours to make up for the extra money you spent on the faster method. It's really not a lot of money. 2 mil per hour is a solid profit, but there's multiple ways in the game that you could make that or even more money. So I would say that in this case, I would rather do infernal ashes, because even though it's more expensive, the hours saved, I can definitely go make more money than that. Of course, not all moneymakers are available to everyone. If you're looking at these numbers and your best moneymaker is less than 1.69 mil an hour, like whatever you're doing money-wise, then Malicious Ashes clearly are the way to go. They're cheap and still look pretty solid for XP rates in general. Using Dragon Bones on a Gilded Altar can range anywhere from 1,000 to 2,500 bones used per hour. That depends if you're manually using each bone or you're just letting your character do it. That's 250k to 630k XP an hour in Prayer, which does max out to more Prayer XP an hour than Infernal Ashes, which we were just looking at, meaning that using Dragon Bones in the Gilded Altar is going to be faster than Demonic Offering. And the GP per XP is at 6.15, which is cheaper than Infernal Ashes. So in other words, for purely prayer training, I would rather use Dragon Bones at the altar. It seems like a better splurge than Ashes currently, but you also get magic XP, and it's less click intensive to use the spell, so it still has its benefits. The rates still look very solid in general, and the Ashes being somewhat recently added to the game, it means that they're higher priced than some of the bones that have a larger supply in general, though I would say the Ashes have settled in general. Like, I wouldn't say the prices are going to change drastically in the short term. So we not only got a spell for being able to avoid spreading ashes, but in the Arceuus Spellbook rework, we got Sinister Offering, which works just like Demonic Offering, but it's going to use 3 bones at a time instead of 3 ashes. This spell requires 92 magic, giving 180 magic XP per spell instead of 175 on Demonic Offering, and it uses a Blood Rune and a Wrath Rune instead of a Soul Rune and a Wrath Rune. 3 times XP for your bones is equivalent to using them on a Gilded Altar that does not have its burners lit, so you can get more XP per bone from just using them on an altar still. The biggest benefit to using Sinister Offering is the magic XP that you get over time, which you really don't get from the altar, obviously, but at the same time, there are other ways to get magic XP. I'm really pumped. Like, I keep saying how good the magic XP is, but it's not, like, game-changing either. We can go over the numbers just like I did with Demonic Offering, but instead, with Sinister Offering here, we're inserting the price of Blood Runes instead of Soul Runes, and then Bones instead of Ashes. So, I've just done a couple of popular bone options here. So first, we have the XP and the GP per hour, giving us a GP per XP for using this spell. Prayer XP required from 70 to 99 prayers, obviously the same as we saw before. That gives us a price tag and the total amount of hours required for using Sinister Offering on all these different types of bones, which I gotta say is very pricey, no doubt. The cheapest of these bones would be Baby Dragon Bones, but since they're still more expensive than using Malicious Ashes on the last table, I'm going to be comparing all of the prices and speeds to those Malicious Ashes to see if any of these methods would be better than Malicious Ashes. Again, this money per hour number that I have here, it represents how much money you would need to make per hour during those hours that you save. Now that you have 32 extra hours, what do you do in those hours to make the money back? That's how much money you'd have to make this worth it. Clearly, the negative numbers, they're just from methods that take longer in the cheaper method, so in other words, those are useless. But the positive numbers on this one are very large, well, considerably large compared to the last chart. You'd have to make almost 5 mil an hour to make up for the money on Dragon Bones instead of just using Malicious Ashes. And that's really not worth it in my opinion. Of all the ways you can train prayer with these 2 spells that we've been discussing, I would go for Infernal Ashes or those Malicious Ashes if you need the cheaper method. It is worth noting that these spells also recover prayer points when you use them, 1 point per ash or bone, unless it's the high level stuff like Inferior Ashes or Superior Dragon Bones, which give 2 prayer points apiece. This could be very useful for activities like Slayer, where you're getting consistent bone and ash drops and potentially using prayer to do your task. You're going to be getting extra XP for each of those bones that you may have even just left on the ground before, and then you're going to save yourself some prayer potions. The point of this guide is to discuss the prayer side of training. It's a 1 to 99 prayer add-on, but these spells are pretty solid in that prayer store mechanic too. In general, I don't think the new spells here and the changes to Ashes have created like a new best method all the way to 99 by any means. I am a fan of Ensouled Heads myself. I really like the idea of getting both prayer and magic XP, which is something that you can get from Ensouled Heads. Pre-99 magic, I would lean using Demonic Offering without a doubt. I do like Demonic Offering in general. Putting your money into multiple skills at a time is usually a no-brainer. As an Iron Man, I'd be very interested in collecting my Ash drops and getting some prayer training this way, if it weren't for the rune cost. Wrath runes, it's not really like the slowest thing to collect, but they're high-level runes, and there's other ways to train prayer without having to grind them. So I do think the method's benefit might also lie in the prayer restoration in niche like Slayer situations too. These methods do give more options for prayer training, and they add multi-skill training methods to the game, which I'm a big fan of. In general, prayer is not cheap, and most players plan on losing a bunch of cash while training it. So even if only a couple of ashes or bones end up to be the most efficient through the spell, it still gives us a lot more options to use. And that's about it for this prayer guide add-on, everybody. Prayer guides in general tend to be a little bit different than any of my other leveling guides. There's really only superior bones when it comes to something that requires a prayer level to train with. So other than that, you can do any method at any level. The discussion really comes down to GP and XP rates. So it's just all about spitting numbers out there. If you're looking for even more information about training prayer outside of these 2 spells, I have a link to my 1 to 99 prayer guide in the description. Thank you very much for watching this prayer guide add-on, everybody. If you enjoyed the video or you just got some useful information out of it, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. If you have any questions, be sure to leave those in the comments section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you're looking for even more content, I do stream on Twitch, which should be linked on the screen and in the description. I'm also on Twitter and have a Discord, and those are also linked in the description. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and best of luck with your prayer grind.